Smark Out Club 444 Live.
I hate it here. I really do. It's one thing to be uber sensitive about everything around you in the world, and it's another thing to complain about some arbitrary list made up on Twitter. And that's where we find ourselves today. Undertaker was on the Joe Rogan podcast, right? It was on Spotify, and he doesn't really do interviews, especially on like a mainstream, and Joe Rogan probably has the most popular podcast in the world. So there was a lot to unpack in the interview, and if you haven't heard it, I suggest it. Joe Rogan does a really good job with these long form interviews, and The Undertaker is probably one of the most popular characters. He's definitely one of the most private. So anytime you get an interview like this, you want to hear what he has to say. And as I looked at the backlash from some of his commentary, I can kind of understand why he doesn't want to give these interviews too often, especially from what a lot of people would consider old-timey, previous generation, get off my lawn type. Like, The Undertaker fits that bill. And so, and he knew it. He knew that comments that he was going to make were going to piss a lot of people off. And what he said was, I try to watch the current product. It's tough for me right now. The product has changed so much and it's kind of off. I probably piss a lot of people off, but they need to hear it. It is what it is. To the young guys who thinks I'm a bitter old guy, I'm not bitter. I did my time. I walked away when I wanted to walk away. I just think the product is a little soft. There's guys here and there that have an edge to them, but there's too much pretty and not enough substance, I think, right now. What is he say? Is he off? I've been saying the same thing for months and almost years on this show. He continues to say that one of the big things that happened was that the generation before, we all got old at the same time, so there weren't enough guys to work with the younger guys. I agree with that too. They threw all of their eggs in the John Cena basket and built no other new stars. And there was plenty of people to build around. There was a poll that we put out, what do you think WWE dropped the ball on most? And there was a lot of Christian not winning the I think it was E at the time, E title in 2005. There was a lot of not growing Wade Barrett and Nexus and some of these guys and not giving these Rey Mysterio a longer title run. There was a lot of that stuff. You know, Rey Mysterio was a little older, but he was a hit with the younger guys. The point is, they didn't build enough stars. So The Undertaker is not off there. I don't see why people would be upset about that. He also said in that era, a lot of the people were men. And what he meant by that was, you did what he had to do. This is not news here. This actually leaks into regular modern post society. A lot of people think, oh, crusty old man, blah, 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 blah. But he's saying these people, you can't criticize the young guys. They get too hurt and then it gets them off their game. Whereas in his era, if you got some type of criticism, you went back to the drawing board and you kept trying and you did your time, you did your dirt, and you broke through on your own. And I don't disagree with what The Undertaker's saying. So that brings us to, before we get to that, some guys, Drew McIntyre agreed with the Taker. But it's easy for Drew, because Drew was one of the guys that you could point to that says, wow, I did it that way. I said, hey, I'm going to leave this company. I'm going to go around the world. I'm going to go to all these independent markets. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to work on my craft and come back. And now he's the main guy and he's the champion. So it's easy for him to kind of agree with The Undertaker. From an in-ring perspective, he's also right too. There's too much style. There's too much worrying about executing the moves, not enough storytelling. That's another topic that I broached on this podcast before. And yet people in the company are complaining about it. Why? What did The Undertaker say that was so goddamn wrong? Xavier Woods said, I wouldn't be the person I am without the guidance and lessons of a few key people from the previous generation of wrestling. They taught me about the business to save my money, and that having video games in a locker room is healthier than having, drugs or whatever. And there was some other notes. Bruiser Brody got murdered because of the type of locker room The Undertaker wishes was still around. That's not what he said, you stupid idiot. So people on the Twitter, when I put this out earlier in the week, are saying some really, really dumb shit. It doesn't make sense. But nobody can deny that the previous generation had greater stars. I mean, and you had the Brock Lesnar's, the Edges, the John Cena's, Batista, Kurt Angle, all these people were fine. It's this era that we're talking about. And that brings us to Natalya. WWE on Fox comes out with this list of tiering, nothing that nobody's ever seen before. Hey, build your fantasy lineup. You have $15 and they tier you from $5 to $1. Well, apparently Natalya was upset that she was only worth $1 in the list. Bitch, where were you supposed to be at? You think you're a $5 star with Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch? Huh? So I guess she was upset because she was in the $1 tier with Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott, and Peyton Royce. Here's the thing. And so it got so bad that the WWE on Fox Twitter handle actually ended up deleting this thing, which is the worst thing you could do. It just so much backlash, and that's the era we live in. If you don't say what the majority agrees with, they can cancel you. It's literally the worst thing in the world. Trust me, I know. So Natalya comes out on Twitter, says, I've struggled for years to figure out exactly what my worth is, but I won't allow anyone to pick that number for me. Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to read the rest of her statement. You can go find it yourself. People are saying that people think they know how the business works and they don't know how it works, and people are priceless. We understand that. Nobody thinks Natalya is literally worth $1. Her backstage contributions has nothing to do with her general perception. Is she? I mean, look at the list. Let's go through the list here, okay? The $5 tier: Becky Lynch, Bayley, Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair. Does Natalya belong in that tier of women? Let's take money out of it. Let's just tier them off, okay? Hell no. Has she ever been as popular as anybody in that $5 tier? Becky, Bayley, the 4 horsewomen, basically. Okay? No. The answer is no. $4 tier: Asuka, Io Shirai, the NXT UK's women champion Kaylee Ray, and Bianca Belair. Is Natalya anywhere near as popular as any of them? Hell no. Has she gotten any of the reactions that anybody in those 8 names that I've given you? No. Okay. $3 tier: Rhea Ripley. All right, so Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Probably Nia Jax. You can take off that list. But not Shayna. Her NXT run was legendary. And Alexa Bliss. So if you have a beef, you can have it with Nia Jax, but more people know who Nia Jax is commercially and casually than they do Natalya. $2 tier: Naomi, Lana, Dakota Kai, Raquel Gonzalez, whatever. The $2 and $1 tiers are all interchangeable. At the end of the day, Natalya, you don't belong in the $5, $4, or $3 tier, so what the hell are you complaining about? You're lucky that you're even on this list. Huh? There's women missing off this list. Where's Tamina? You think she out here complaining? I mean, Jesus. Where's Candice LeRae? She probably should be in the $4 tier. She ain't on this list. But you upset that you on the $1 on some stupid list that literally means nothing. It's for the fans. Sorry to break it to you, honey, but the fans don't know who you are. You're not even the daughter of one of the Good Hearts. It'd be different if you were the daughter of Owen or Brett. You're not even that. You're their 9 Heart, literally the worst member of the Hart Foundation. You're out here complaining. Shut up. Just shut up. Nobody wants to hear that. It's soft. And then she gets everybody involved because people like her. And I get that she does so much backstage. I get that she is a great wrestler. But guess what? That doesn't mean anything when it comes to the fans. We've seen plenty of people who should be at the top of the card that aren't for whatever reason. But you've been around too long, Natalya. They didn't capitalize on it. That's your fault. So I don't know. It doesn't. Shelton Benjamin is Natalya's one of her really good friends. So he came out on WWE and Fox, said you should erase this insulting post and apologize to every woman on the roster. Mind your business, Shelton. Mind your business. Why are you throwing on a cape? How about Shelton Benjamin? How about you? Where were you at when ACH was going through his beef? I forgot what his WWE name was. Why aren't you this big up on the racism that's literally rampant in that company? Well documented. They're out here hiding international rape scenes. They had a female star commit suicide because your company, the company that you're repping, is covering up rapes overseas by its employees. What about that? You cannot like it. I get it. Seriously, I do. But to sit there and complain about it, for what? Some stupid list there's gonna be another one. Mind you, there's lists like that all over the place for every sport. It's just something to get the fans engaged in the Twitter thing. It's like a cheap chat tactic. You're worried about your place on it? Well, all right, Natalya, if you want to argue about it, where do you belong? Somebody tell me. Where do you belong? It's not real, guys. Sorry. WWE on Fox did the same thing with men. Huh? They didn't. Where was the complaints about that? They had The Undertaker, The Rock, and John Cena, and I think Stone Cold on the $5 tier. I remember because I did it. And I was upset because my boy Christian was in the $1 tier. Mr. Perfect was in the $1 tier. How? They had Big Show and Mark Henry above them. That don't make no sense to me. But guess what? Nobody complained because they're men. So shut up. All you soft people that are out here defending Natalya, she should have made a better thing of her career. Or she should have been, the daughter of a more famous heart. I'm sick of it. Can somebody inform me what Keith Lee is? Can somebody tell me exactly who he's supposed to be? Why I should care about him? He wasn't booked on Raw. He has this big triple threat at Elimination Chamber for the U.S. title that, frankly, he has no business being in. He has no chance of winning it. And yet, somehow, people still continue to root for him. What is he supposed to be? I get that he's charismatic. I get that he's pretty good in the mic. And for a guy his size, he's pretty good in the ring. Great. We've seen all that before. He's not interesting. Can we just say that? He's only interesting because he looks like he shouldn't be doing backflips, and yet he can do a backflip. Vince McMahon sent him down to the Performance Center not too long ago, and everybody was up in arms about that. When he got to the main roster, they made him put a tank top on. A lot of people weren't really happy about that, man. But why? What does he do that makes you like, yeah, I'm ready for this Keith Lee thing? Because he's good in the ring? He's a guy, to me, who has no direction. He's a naturally gifted microphone talker, naturally gifted in the ring. And so they felt like in NXT you can get away with that because there's hardcore wrestling fans. They don't really care about your character there as much as they do on the main roster. But when you get to the big leagues, when you get to the top, you have to be somebody. Keith Lee is just a mixture of different shit. I feel bad for him because I do want him to succeed. I think there should be more black, high profile people at the top of WWE. We've always had house slaves in there in the forms of Mark Henry and Booker T. That's a different podcast for a different time. Anybody wants to argue with me about that, feel free to send me a message. But I'm so happy for Sasha Banks. I'm so happy for Bianca Belair, but we need a man up there, a real a guy for us. They wouldn't let Kofi do it. It's a shame that a lot of his run felt like it was on a temporary basis, so it never really felt real. You were kind of waiting for that shoe to drop, and it finally dropped on that fateful day. I feel bad. I feel bad for NXT because these guys go there and you can have a career successful as Keith Lee in NXT and then realize that your fate can be that on the main roster. He's just another casualty. But when everybody started complaining because Keith Lee didn't have any real direction on the main roster, that Vince doesn't like his promos, he got sent back down for more training, I sat there and said, well, what'd you expect? What has Keith Lee done besides have a pretty good showdown? You know, he caught fire. He had a little hot moment, you know what I'm saying? In music business, he had a hot single. Where's the album? That's all we care about, right? Cool. You shot a good field goal percentage in the basketball game for one game. Linsanity. Linsanity was all the rage for about 2 weeks there. He's in the developmental leagues. He was playing in the Euro leagues 2 weeks ago. It's cool to be hot for a minute. You got to sustain it. You got to be somebody, homie. And Keith Lee ain't that. I'll tell you that much. Keith Lee don't excite me at all. I see him in the ring. I'm like, all right, cool. He's a big guy. See him do a moonsault. That's cool. What's your character, bro? Limitless, Legion, that shit is corny. It's corny. Keith Lee is corny. Can we just say it? Can we just admit it? It's cool to admit it. You can like the guy because of his athletic ability. You can like the guy because of his independent run that he had. Cool. But let's not act like he ain't corny. And I'm the last person to judge how a black man talks. I'm the last person to judge how anybody conducts themselves. But Keith Lee, what are you? Somebody tell me. Hit me up on Twitter at Smark Out Club. I will argue it. Keith Lee is never going to go anywhere. And I said that on our Facebook group, and I said it on Twitter, and I've said it to a bunch of my wrestling friends. And when we talk about this stuff, he ain't going nowhere. Because he doesn't have something. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have something to cling on to. He doesn't have that thing that makes us care about him. That's what he needs. It has nothing to do with gimmick. He has to have that thing to connect with people. People like him because he's a good athlete and they're cheering for him because he's a big guy and he's something that nobody's seen before. Vince McMahon knows that that's going to wear off after a while. And I'm not one of these guys that thinks that Vince McMahon is out of touch. I don't think he's ever had the touch. I just think is who he is. But one thing's for sure, you know, he's right about Keith Lee. I'll tell you that. So Keith Lee, get it together. Get it together. Figure out who you are. If I was Keith Lee, I would beg to go down to NXT and I would stay off TV for a while. Figure out who you want to be as a person. And Keith Lee as constructed would probably work better as a heel, but the Hurt Business and the champion as a heel, that's what I would actually do. I'd have him join the Hurt Business. That'd be the best move for him because he's not the main guy. He's not ready to be a solo guy yet. He can't do it. They tried. It's not enough. Clearly, he needs to join the Hurt Business, learn from the great people that are in the MVP, Shelton, the guys, Bobby, who've been around for just like they're doing with Cedric. Cedric is the perfect example. A guy who is super gifted in the ring. He has all the tools. He has the look, right? Like Keith Lee. But he doesn't have, people didn't care. When Enzo was the Cruiserweight champion, I was hyped for Enzo. And everybody yelled at me saying, what are you talking about? Cedric should be the champ. Cedric should be the champ. Once he became the champ, what happened? 205 Live died. You know why he's not? Because he's not interesting. There's nothing about him to connect to the people just because he does a bunch of flippity flip shit. It's not enough to just be a good wrestler. Not anymore. And it never was. You have to be a character. So Keith Lee should join the Hurt Business. That's the solution. Learn, be a heel, learn under some other guys. And from there, that Batista went that way, right? Randy Orton went that way. It wasn't working with those guys. They join a faction with some dudes who know what they're doing. Boom. The Animal, Batista. Boom. The Legend Killer, Randy Orton. Top 5, dead or alive. So my advice is for Keith Lee, stop arguing with people on Twitter because you're upset that people don't get why you like certain rock music and death metal music. Who cares? How about you focus on becoming somebody who can be the face of this company for the next 10, 15 years? Worry about that. Worry about yourself. Find a way to get into the Hurt Business and become the man that everybody thinks you are. Thank you for joining me on the Smark Out Club. I'm trying to kick this thing up to the next level. I got some video podcasts coming up soon. If you want to be a guest, hit me up at Smark Out Club on Twitter or send me a message on Facebook. Don't forget to join the Facebook group. at Smark Out Club. Until then, enjoy Elimination Chamber. I will talk to you guys next time.